support from Superior, Ann Arbor Township, Lyon Township, and Northfield Township, all providing water. We've pretty much taken every water supplying vehicle around us and started looking at maybe moving farther to Green Oaks and Sile. That's how big that fire was. So the fortunate part that was nobody was hurt. The fortunate part that it was insured. The unfortunate part is that during the holidays someone suffered a catastrophic loss. And we also want to thank the Red Cross for coming out and supporting the family and supporting the fire department. So think about that as the holiday approaches. Watch your candles, watch your trees, making sure they're watered, and please practice fire safety. Unfortunately, through the holidays, it's a very high propensity for fires. The second thing is, if you're not aware of it, we had a potential child abduction, and we sent out our first Nixle alert out in the area. So if you've not signed up for Nixle, we're going to try to get it on the website. It's an opportunity time. We quit right away with what the picture was, with the potential suspect looked like. And again, we're going to try to grow that in the community so we can send out alerts for like robberies and things like that, so we as ourselves can watch out our own neighborhoods. So I just wanted to kind of pass that on, and thank you for that.
Just further comments on that, Chief. As you know, you had called me in the middle of the night, and it was impressive to see our fellows, our guys at that fire, and how you guys responded and took care of the families. And it was pretty impressive to watch. And again, to thank that family, and then or think of that family during these holiday times, and then also of the abduction. We talked to the state police today. They just had a couple suspects. If there's, and all we can do is ask our residents to be watching and looking. If you get on the website, there is a description of the vehicle and the person. So we advise you, if you have not been on our website, to make sure that you do check that and be watching at all times. Nothing has been solved yet, but that's the word from the state police today. Okay, moving on to 7A2, the Fire Department Training Officer.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the appointment of Mark Himmler as the Salem Township Fire Department Training Officer.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by John Daniel.
Mr. Supervisor, with the elevation of Chief Rockwell, where he had been the training officer previously, that position opened up. Two applicants applied for the position, and Mr. Himmler was recommended as the person to fill that slot. So I recommend we support the recommendation of Chief Rockwell in this appointment.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving Mark Himmler as the Salem Township Fire Department Training Officer, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is passed. Okay, down to 7B, Administrative. First on the Planning Commission. I move that Salem Township approve the following appointments to the Salem Township Planning Commission for a 3-year term beginning January 1st of 2013 and ending December 31st of 2015. T.J. McLaughlin as our Salem Township Board Liaison Person, Bart Kahn, and thirdly, Darrell Lewandowski. Just a brief comment on a few of these. As you know, TJ, of course, we're excited that she has volunteered to be our board liaison person with the Planning Commission. Bart Kahn, who has served for several years has committed again to serve. Darrell Lewandowski, his background has been, I believe, about 3 years that he has served before on the Planning Commission. He also has served as deputy supervisor for a short time, with experience that he brings to the table. So upon that, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
And Mr. Supervisor, just a realization here at the last moment that technically TJ's appointment would be effective immediately as the board liaison position is vacant. And so whereas they are 3-year terms that begin on a rotational basis that would commence January 1st, technically as the board liaison, she could be appointed immediately, and that way she could continue to begin serving as early as next week then, at that upcoming planning commission.
Oh, so that's Monday, you got a meeting. Sorry about that, DJ.
So I would just clarify that her appointment is effective immediately, but would end on that 12/31/15.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor for these following appointments, TJ McLaughlin, Bart Kahn, Darrell Lewandowski, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 7C. I'm sorry. Number 2. BC. B2. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, I make a motion to approve the following appointments to the Salem Township Land Preservation and Conservation Board. Mary Beth Schmidt as the Salem Township representative to complete a 2-year term that expires July 31st, 2014. Susan Beejan as a citizen representative to complete a 2-year term that expires July 31st, 2014. Do I have a second?
I'll second this.
Okay. Seconded by Clerk Wensley. Any discussion?
Should we also have a immediate on the start? Mary Beth?
Yeah.
They would both be effective immediately. The term's already in existence. It's being filled to complete the term.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the following appointments to the Salem Township Land Preservation and Conservation Board? Mary Beth Schmidt is the Salem Township Board representative to complete a 2-year term that expires July 31st, 2014. Susan Beejan is a citizen representative to complete a 2-year term that expires on July 31st, 2014. Let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Okay, I move that Salem Township, this is on 7B3, Salem Township approved the following appointments to the Salem Springs Committee to continue the charge of implementing the arbitration decisions and negotiating and working with Salem Springs LLC representatives. Gary Whitaker is the chair, Mary Beth Schmidt, and David Trent. And as as a note there, committee guidelines 3, 6, and 7, and 11 are still waived during this process. Do I have a-
Support.
Thank you. David? Trent? Any discussion?
I have one thing to say.
Okay.
My name's misspelled.
Two eyes.
2 I's. I've never had that happen before in my life.
Is that on everything on there?
No, just this
Oh,
one.
just this one. Okay, well, who typed this?
I'm just glad it didn't end up on a nameplate.
Okay, no further discussion?
Hey,
Yes.
is this a new committee? And if so, what's its charter?
This is, I believe this is not a new committee. Maybe you can give me some history about this, Dave.
Yeah, it's not a new committee, it's, former members of this committee were Supervisor Heil, Treasurer Paul Urick, and Trustee Sue Dejan. They were charged with implementing, or actually working with Salem Springs to adopt changes to the development agreements that were put in place by the arbitrator decisions. And that process is still ongoing. As part of that arbitration process, the township and Salem Springs are negotiating a contract with Yucca in Ypsilanti, and that process is still ongoing, and these 3 people will take over that charge.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right then. Then I move that all those in favor of approving the following appointments to the Salem Springs Committee to continue this charge of implementing the decisions and negotiating with, working with Salem Springs LLC, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, moving on to number 4, B4.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township disband the Public Safety Committee effective immediately.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'll just make a comment that the Public Safety Committee was originated a couple of years ago. Its original charge was to help with the implementation and negotiating to encourage the Michigan State Police to have a bigger presence in Salem Township, which was accomplished by them taking over the Ryder House and increasing their presence from 1 trooper to 4. And we've enjoyed some supplemental benefit from that enhanced presence. The committee's charge was then encompassed to include all public safety committee, public safety issues, including law enforcement and the fire department. There's been a number of activities that have gone on. Some of the recommendations have gotten hung up in the process of trying to get things implemented. And I think with a new board coming on, it would be better at this juncture for the entire board to be involved in the decision-making process, thus eliminating the need for a public safety committee.
And just one further comment, I believe that this board is concerned with the fact of public safety for all of its residents, which we believe it is one and the most important one, that a service that we do provide to the citizens, that this board wants to be involved to make sure that we have a very effective department, fire department and police protection that we can provide to the citizens. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor of disbanding the Public Safety Committee, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township adopt Resolution 2012-12-11-01. This is a resolution complying with the provisions of Public Act 152 that was adopted by the Michigan State Legislature in 2011. At a regular meeting of the Salem Township Board of Trustees held on December 11, 2012, the following resolution was offered by Trustee Trent. Soon we find out who is going to say it. Whereas on September 27, 2011, the Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act, Public Act 152 of the Public Acts of Michigan of 2011 became effective in the state of Michigan. And whereas Act 152 establishes standards and a process with respect to medical benefit plans offered by public employers, including the right for municipalities to exempt themselves from the expenditure limitation by a 2/3 vote of the elected body. And whereas Salem Township has historically recognized in its role of steward for the public funds entrusted to it, that it must efficiently manage those resources. And whereas Salem Township regularly engages in a review of expenditures in order to maximize the value it receives for goods and services. And whereas Salem Township further believes that the determination of compensation and benefits for the township employees are most properly under the venue of the township's elected representatives and not the state of Michigan or its officials. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 8 of Act 152, Salem Township hereby exempts itself from the requirement of Act 152 for the next succeeding calendar year of 2013 by the necessary minimum 2/3 vote, pending the vote to follow.
Can you repeat that? All right. Okay, we'll need a roll call on this. All those in,
We need a second first.
we need a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Now we need a roll call to complying with the provisions of this Public Act 152.
Converse,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Hensley, yes. Whitaker,
Yes.
Okay, now that's passed, and we go down to B6, staff salaries and work hours.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the following compensation for the newly appointed Deputy Treasurer Janice Raditz, effective November 20th, 2012, at a pay rate of $19 an hour, and adjust the following staff pay rates effective January 1st, 2013. Deputy Clerk position now filled by Kimberly Taggart at $19.95 an hour. Community Development Administrator position now filled by Donna Cripps at $22 an hour. Increase the Administrative Assistant position per hour rate to $22 an hour for Carol Leogio, and increase the annual salary for the Fire Chief position now held by James Rockwell at $22,852. These pay rates will remain in effect through the 2013-14 fiscal year, and no other adjustments will be made until then. In addition, all staff personnel hours are reduced to a maximum of 28 hours per week effective January 1st, 2013. Exceptions must be approved by the department head or immediate supervisor in advance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
John Daniel, seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, if I could just add a little bit of background to this motion. One of the things that government entities are having to deal with in the upcoming future is the effect of the Obamacare healthcare package. It's been advertised that gets fully implemented in 2014. However, as lawyers and municipalities are starting to read through that 2,700 plus pages of legislation, we are finding that there are provisions in that Healthcare Act that has a feature that's called a look-back provision. And what the look-back provision entails is that any employee who works over 30 hours per week, or 1,500 hours annually, is considered an employee who should be offered a health care coverage by the employer. And if you don't offer health care coverage to that individual, that you have to pay the consequent penalty to that. As a result of this, a number of jurisdictions are trying to be proactive, and they're actually reducing part-time staff that currently work less than 40 hours but more than 30, and reducing those hours to less than 30 hours per week. And I've been in contact with a couple of municipalities that are enacting a similar type of policy that is before you tonight. And as a result of this recommended policy change, 2 individuals would be having their hours reduced from where they currently are working today. Our community development administrator currently works 32 hours per week on the average. And of course, Carol Liogio has been full-time for a number of years. So those positions would have their hours reduced to less than 30. The other positions have typically worked less than 30, though in the past, the deputy treasurer did work more than 30 hours previously under the previous administration. As a result of these changes and other changes that may be implemented next year, that this board will be apprised of as they come up for discussion, we felt it was incumbent to reward the talent and the skill sets that these employees bring to the table, and so these pay rates are being adjusted accordingly. Of course, we have a new deputy treasurer that this board has to approve the pay rate, retroactive to November 20th. And so instead of going through a salary appraisal in March for the upcoming fiscal year, we're going to make those changes now in concert with the hours that are being changed. And this will tie into the next motion as well, too, that deals with changes to health and dental care for employees.
Very good. Any other discussion? Okay, if not,
Mr. Supervisor, this would require a roll call vote because it deals with setting of salaries.
all right.
We'll call Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
McLaughlin, Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes. Whitaker,
Yes. Motion is passed. Okay, now to the employee policy manual.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township amend the following sections of the Salem Township Employee Policies and Procedures Manual as attached. The sections to be modified are Section 3.4.2, dealing with part-time employees with prorated benefits, 3.4.3, part-time employees with no benefits, Section 6.2 and 6.3 that deal with health care and dental care respectively, and also add Appendix 1, which is the schedule for employee contributions. These amendments will take effect on January 1st, 2013.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may highlight some of the major changes in these policy changes, tied in with the discussion we just had on the impact of the Obama healthcare implementation, and in the decision to provide health care coverage for our employees and opting out of Public Act 152, which provides the flexibility for this township board to administer those benefits as we deem appropriate. Section 6.2 and 6.3, which deal with health and dental care, are being modified so that all employees are eligible for health care benefits. And tied in with this change with Appendix 1, where previously we looked at a historical track record of how many hours over the course of a year did an employee work, and then use that percentage of hours worked to calculate what their contribution level would be, as well as what percentage of the health care benefits or dental care benefits that the township would cover. We now have established a new policy where, going forward, We're removing the 90-day requirement that an employee has to be, have that much seniority to access health care. We're making it where employees are eligible for health care or dental care upon hire or the first day that the insurance provider can queue them up for coverage. Secondly, under Appendix 1, all new employees would be required to contribute 20% toward the health or dental care coverage that they choose. And as a reward for seniority, for every year of seniority, the amount of contribution from the employee is reduced by 2%. So in essence, a 10-year employee ends up not having to pay for any health care coverage at all. So there is the benefit for seniority as well as retaining employees in the future. And whereas a lot of government entities that are having financial issues have adopted plans where it's an arbitrary 20% or some hard cap number where over a certain threshold number the employee has to pay those premiums. We've established an arbitrary 20%, and that would be reduced for every year of seniority. The changes to 3.42 and 3.43 are minor, and just clarifying them and making them the same. And so I ask for the board's support in adopting these policy changes and implementing this new system for employee contribution for health and dental care.
And David, talking to our employees that are here in the last few weeks, most of them would be looking to opt into that.
That is correct.
Carol would be covered with many years that she's been here, so that her health care would be covered. All right, we have a second on this? Oh, you already did? Okay. All right, then all those in favor of approving the Salem Township Policies and Procedures Manual, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay, down to,
Four more meetings, apparently, everyone wants.
going right through the township office holiday hours.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve closing the Township Hall on Christmas Eve, December 24th, Christmas Day, December 25, and New Year's Day, January 1st, 2013.
And a second? John, Daniel, second.
Mr. Supervisor, the board may have seen in their board package, because of section 6.2 and 6.3, dealing with health and dental care, that 6.1 deals with holidays. And one of the items that's covered in 6.1 indicates that it's up to the board to determine what days the township will close when Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve fall during the week, and not on a weekend. That was an oversight from the board in April when we set the calendar, and so this is our opportunity to address that issue. And so the recommendation is that we close on Christmas Eve. Obviously, Christmas Day and New Year's Day are legal holidays that the board already is closed on those days. And as a service to our citizens, we will remain open on New Year's Eve, so people can come in and pay their taxes on the last day. And we're making, under the direction of the supervisor, we're allowing employees the option of taking that day off with either vacation or personal time and sufficient coverage by elected officials.
So who's covering the office?
I hear you have a nice phone voice.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve closing the township halls during the Christmas and New Year's Day holidays, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 9, the motion to reestablish the Salem Township P.O. Box mailing address at the Salem Contract Post Office.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve authorizing the supervisor to reestablish the official mailing address for Salem Township, designated zip code of 48175, with a P.O. Box at the Salem Contract Post Office.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, if I may. Many in this community are well aware of the controversy that ensued when the contract post office was evicted from the Ryder House and has since relocated into the old Rittering House by the railroad tracks. As a result of that move and at the discretion of some leaders within the prior board, the township mailbox, which had been in Salem probably since eternity, was changed to a P.O. Box in Plymouth. As a result of that move and because of the idiosyncrasies within the U.S. Postal Service and the forwarding and transfer of mail, to this day, almost 2 years after the fact, we still get phone calls from vendors and people who call us and say, I tried to mail you something and it came back to me. What is your address? And in addition to that, in order to retrieve that mail, we have to send somebody on their merry way every business day to go collect the mail from Plymouth. It's inefficient, it costs us money, and we have this opportunity to reestablish a P.O. Box in Salem and authorize the supervisor to fill out the necessary paperwork to do that. The old P.O. Box is available, and I would recommend we utilize that number and move forward and bring Salem back home to Salem.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. Most of you, when you got your taxes, you probably realized that there was
Can you
a
use the microphone, please?
P.O. Box.
Turn it on.
Most of you, when you got your taxes, you may have noticed on your return address on your envelope that says P.O. Box 2, and that was an inadvertent mistake by the printer. Did not know, because I just gave him all the tax forms and it says mail them, and they grabbed the wrong form and they had P.O. Box. And as a result of that, we are getting a lot of taxes that are sent to P.O. Box. And if we don't vote on this, all those taxes go into the dead mail. They cannot be returned. So that goes into the legal ways that the post office is working. So bottom line is, it is a necessary thing to do as well. It was not an oversight, it was just a mess up by the printer. To that end, I would just also say that it certainly is going to reduce a lot of our expenses, because at 45 cents a mile, we have to run down there 2 times a day, and that's a lot of money that we have to pay for mileage to go and get the mail.
Mr. Supervisor, if I could just add one other brief comment, and that is, there will be a transition period going forward because the tax statements did go out and the inserts in those tax statements say to send your statement or send your monies to P.O. Box 702546 in Plymouth. So obviously, we need to keep that box open during the tax season as we go through this transition and do all the customary things that you do internally when you're making a mailing address change and notify all of our vendors. I would encourage that we give this policy change, if adopted tonight, publicity in our upcoming newsletter articles so that our citizens know that we're making that change, and then at some point next year, when we deem it appropriate, we can close that box in Plymouth and arrange for mail to be forwarded back to Salem. And once that happens, regardless of how the mail is addressed, as long as it has Salem somewhere in the address, it will get delivered to our P.O. Box. And that's part of the problem today, is that if it is addressed 9606 Mile Road in Salem, that doesn't get to us anymore. It's got to say the P.O. Box for or Salem to get to us properly. And there's still a lot of mail that ends up through the cracks because it's not properly addressed.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of establishing the Salem Township P.O. Box mailing address of the Salem Contract Post Office, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and going down to approval budget amendment.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the following cost center budget amendment for fiscal year 2012-13. Under cost center 101, Township Board to revise the budget from $36,332 to $38,332, and specifically to increase the training line 960.000 from 500 to 2,500. And funding for this amendment will occur through contingency or reserves.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a question on that.
Okay.
Is this for the training seminars for the new board?
That's absolutely correct, Trustee Schmidt. The reason we're making this change is when the budget was adopted at the beginning of the fiscal year, it was not anticipated with the number of new trustees that would be coming on board, and with the training opportunities that exist over the next 60 days, we want to ensure that adequate funds are available for training of the new board.
And as you can see, I need some training, so. We're gonna get some training. So, anyway, any further discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve this budget amendment, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, this is the D1, contract snow removal.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve a one-year contract extension with Ultra Unlimited Services for snow removal services for the 2012-13 winter season in the amount of $7,250, and to waive the bid policy requiring 3 bids.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Winsley, seconds. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, for the past 4 years, we have paid in the vicinity of $7,250 to $7,450. Last year, Ultra Unlimited Services was the lone vendor to submit a request for bid, and she was awarded that bid. Sharon Bell, our local resident that lives in the hamlet, she did a very fine job for the little bit of snow that we had. Maybe this year we'll have more snow, but in light of the fact that we're in December and this was not addressed a month or 2 earlier, it would be prudent for us to extend the contract for 1 year, and she has agreed to maintain the same level of pricing as last year. And as part of our purchasing and bid policy, there is a requirement that any bids over $2,500 we have to have 3 bids. We would waive that requirement via a roll call vote.
Okay, all those in favor of unlimited services in this motion, the roll call?
Converse?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Winsley? Yes. Whitaker?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, we go down to reports, clerk. Expenditures, the reports, and also Washington County reports. We did receive them today.
In your packets, you should have the entire budget through this year. And you should have you have any questions, you can talk to David about that.
All right. There's no board discussion tonight, and I guess we'll move down to public comment.
My question relates to one of the agenda items, B6, in reducing part-time employees to 28 hours. Are we then going to be hiring additional staff to cover the 12 hours to get to 40 for anybody who was full-time?
Right now, we're working on that. There has been between our Donna Cripps, part of the zoning, and that she doesn't work on Fridays, so we have people that cover that part of it. They're putting the hours together, and it looks like that it's, going to be worked out fine. So, down the road, as the building starts to increase, there might be a need for more part-time workers. So, at that time, we would address that at that time.
I'm thinking specifically with respect to Carol.
Right. Right.
Was she working 40 hours?